I welcome you all to today's session on data science and AI/ML roles, jointly conducted by Center of Innovation and Incubation and the Center for Career Planning and Development. At CII, we believe that entrepreneurship and innovation go hand in hand, and what more perfect example of that would it be if not a speaker for today? I would like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed speaker for the day, Ms. Madhavi Kaivalya Kandalam. Ma'am is an NIT Warangal alumni from the batch of 2010 biotechnology branch. She has 10 plus years experience in AI products. She has managed a team of 25 in India and led multiple fresher recruitment drives for her team. She is currently pursuing her MBA at the London Business School and working on her own startup. Before we start, I request all the attendees to switch on their cameras to make this an interactive session. So without further ado, I would now like to hand it over to Madhavi ma'am to share her wonderful journey with us today.
Thank you so much, Harsha, for the high-profile introduction. First of all, welcome everyone, and a big shout out to the teams for putting this together. So thank you for that. And thank you all of you for showing up on a Sunday evening. It's an overwhelming response. I'm super excited. I'll try to keep it interesting and useful to I'll try to keep it as interesting and useful to you as possible. So I went through the list of questions which you have submitted. I guess there's a broad spectrum out there. We can't cover everything, but just to confirm, you can all see my screen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, I just did a word cloud of the questions which you all have submitted. So of course, a lot of them were around data science because that's kind of my background. But there were some questions around internships, especially off-campus internships and what kind of projects you should work on. So let's see what we can cover. This is how it's going to work. I'll talk a little bit about data science. It may or may not align with what you had in mind. So expect the unexpected. And then we'll talk about how to plan your career and how to prep for recruitment. We'll do some open Q&A at the end. So I'll just to start off with, I know that there are people from first, second, third, and final years over here. Some of you may be very familiar with it. Some of you may not. Just to explain the relevance of this field and why it is being so disruptive. I'm sure most of you would have seen this graph before. Look at the growth in the volume of data that we have and how it's been growing exponentially. So there is both structured data, which is kind of tables, and there's more unstructured data, which is speech, images. It's not, data which you cannot store in a table. That's unstructured data, like the reviews which you post on YouTube, the comments which you post on Facebook. So what has driven the explosion in this field is basically, it's not a very new field, by the way, contrary to what you think. Artificial intelligence, people have been researching since almost 6-7 decades now. It's just that there have been certain things which have triggered the explosion a lot. Of course, one is the volume of data. There are 4 million search queries on Google per minute now. And we have more computing power today. This is what is important. We have GPUs now, we have quantum computing going on. So that has given rise to also better algorithms. The algorithms which we are working on are also improving. So the possibilities with what you can do with machine learning have also been evolving so much. And so many new businesses are centered around this area. I know a lot of you have asked this question, and this is something which everyone who is not in this field has a confusion with, what the fuck is with this terminology? Is it data science? Is it AI? Is it machine learning? Is it analytics? Is it deep learning? I'm just going to say it's all a bit blurry, don't get caught up with the semantics. But if you force me to explain, that's the Wikipedia definition of data analysis. First, understand what that is. It's basically doing something useful with data, in short. And people define, this whole data science field was created to combine math skills with programming skills and industry knowledge. So that's that Venn diagram. And what is machine learning? So I had this question like for quite a few years, like why is it called artificial intelligence? Like why can't it be like any other programming? But it's at the end of the day, it's a computer program, right? And I worked in this field for like 4 or 5 years to actually get it, that that's why this is different. Basically, it is not if else logic. It's basically, it's an algorithm with which you are training the machine to kind of like think and decide in a way in which a human can, using certain mechanisms. There are three different approaches. I'm not going to explain this in technical terms. One is supervised learning. If you read a textbook and you come up with a summary, that is unsupervised learning. You're finding patterns from data. You don't have previously known answers. Supervised learning is basically you take some practice tests and then you give CAT. That is supervised learning because you already have some past questions and examples and answers. I hope this is making it clear. So for supervised learning, you need something called as training data to work with. And reinforcement learning is completely different. This is what is used in GPT-3, if you've heard about it. Reinforcement learning is basically carrot and stick. Like you reward the computer or the algorithm for making the right decisions. You penalize for making the wrong decisions. It's how you train a child, basically. You have to define like what are the criteria for which you reward and you don't reward, but yeah, that's how it works. AI is basically ML plus other things. I mean, one of the approaches to accomplish AI is machine learning, which has been primary focus today. I mean, there were completely different approaches earlier in AI, like expert systems. It has evolved to machine learning now. It can be something else tomorrow, but basically you get it right. The goal is to kind of machines achieve like human level of intelligence. That's the gist of it. I promise I will not talk about any other technical stuff after this in this presentation. And while it all like sounds really cool, you know that there are so many examples of it, like which, I mean, you use Google every day and Google gives you like so many personalized recommendations about everything. You use Facebook every day and they all give you like personalized recommendations about everything. You use Netflix. So there are like so many examples of where this is being used in businesses today. Having said all this, while all these algos like sound really cool, there is something about hype versus reality. So take it all with a pinch of salt. This is one of my favorite quotes. Like someone said, AI is like teenage sex. Everyone talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it, so everyone claims they're doing it. This is especially true in the context of businesses. So when you come into this field, um, do not come with the expectation that you're going to be like tweaking these algorithms on a day in and day out basis. There is a lot of dirty work which you need to do before you get there. And also the reality is this. Half of the times when companies say they need AI, they probably need SQL or they probably need someone to make a dashboard. So, I mean, so take all of it with a pinch of salt. I'm not saying this field is not exciting. It has been very exciting. But I mean, you have to like, it's baby steps, right? Like you have to first like learn the alphabet before you form sentences. And businesses also find it hard to understand like what actually they need, especially like conventional businesses, which is why this gap exists. So with that background, having said that, this is true for anything in your career. You will end up like 70% of the work which you do will probably not be what you would want to do. But you have to do that 70% to do the things which really excite you. I mean, you can't say let somebody else do all the dirty work for me, because nobody would be willing to do that. And if you want to, especially the way things are changing in today's world, you can't say, okay, I'm only going to be doing intellectual work, somebody else do all the hands-on for me. That doesn't work no matter what stage of your career you are in. Even when I was heading a department, like I mean, there were a lot of times like when I would write queries and pull data for myself and look at what's going on and not be so dependent on my team. So this holds true for most of the jobs and not specifically data science. Also bear that in mind. Now coming to the relevant question which you've asked, like how to master in this field, like what are the things which I would advise that you should focus on? Like I said, it's baby steps. So one thing which I'm going to say is it is a technical, it is a technical job. I mean, even if you're not targeting technical jobs, learn some programming. You will thank me for it later, 5 years later. I think it's a universal skill today. Everyone should learn some programming. In this field, be prepared to write your own codes. Get dirty with the data. Real life data is really shitty. It's not at all. If some of you have explored like Coursera or done some of the mock projects, yeah, it's not clean like that. I mean, it's really crappy, and you really need to like put in a lot of effort in making it clean. And also don't start off with thinking that you would only do modeling. I really think the real skill, it actually doesn't take any expertise to run a model. You have like ready to run codes available from Python or whatever programming language you use it. I'm sure like every platform today has its own set of codes which are readily available. You just have to apply them on the data set and run it. And you don't even need to understand how the model works. Generally, there are some ready to use rules or benchmarks about how to interpret the results, and that's it. That's really not the expertise. The expertise actually lies in understanding how you can use data very creatively. And to be able to get that, you need to play with the data a lot, like explore it, like actually look at it from multiple dimensions, visualize it, study the patterns. Don't be afraid to like do all of these things. Do not, when I say don't be afraid, what I mean is a lot of times freshers wait for a particular project to be assigned to them. That's not how technical jobs work actually. What you should do is spend time, like irrespective of whether somebody has assigned it to you or not, spend time exploring the data, like test out different models on it. If I mean, you can do it on small samples if you think it's like too much, if it's going to take too long to run. But try out a few things, experiment and learn things by yourself. That is very, very important. It generally like, it won't be handed over to you in a platter. So this is something which you shouldn't be like afraid to do. I mean, make sure that you do that and think about asking the right questions. What are the relevant questions which you should ask? And last point is most important. In any field today, in any career today, communication is a universal skill. And another thing which I generally think is don't be afraid. I mean, don't think that you should not be like working on report generation or visualization. Those are also equally important. It's okay, like after you gain certain level of expertise, you don't want to spend a lot of time doing that. That's perfectly fine. But don't like skip that step. And also, if you want to learn more about models, again, don't expect it to be handed over. Like read up about them, try them out. There are ready to use codes for everything these days. So the expectations from your generation are really like unreasonable. I know that. But you also have access to a lot of things. So I guess it balances out. That's about this. And yeah, this is about like managing your expectations, especially like I said, data management and wrestling, like that really takes up a lot of your time. Real world data is shitty, and SVOT is actually single version of truth. You will understand what it means once you start working on it. It doesn't exist. I have spent 30-40% of my time in my career just trying to reconcile like two different sets of data. It's not accounting, but two different data sources will never give you the same answer to the same query. And you're just like trying to understand why they don't match. And like I said, this is true for a lot of other jobs, the basics like formatting your deliverables. I mean, you think that if you are going to be in investment banking, like you're going to be taking all these like cool decisions about picking which stocks are right. My husband is an investment banker, and I think he spends again 40% of his day in actually like formatting the Excels and formatting the Word, which might be very boring to you. but you have to do those things if you want to do the other intellectual work. So that's the takeaway which I have. At this point, I want to pause. Let's take a 30-second breather. And yes, I mean, it would be nice if you turn on your cameras so that I can look at your faces. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat.
Hello, Didi. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
You are a data scientist, Didi, and you have a biotech background. So you have realized in the college time that you have to become a data scientist, or like after completing your graduation you have realized. And the second one is, Didi, what is your roadmap, and how did you become like which steps do you follow to become a data scientist?
That's a very good question. I've deliberately saved that question for the career journey part. That's why I haven't done my own intro. I'll definitely answer that question. Thanks for asking. Ashwin, actually, you need to learn programming. I mean, you need to know about all these things, but you start with learning programming, Excel, I mean, Python, R, whatever. I recommend learning Python. Not really. You don't need competitive programming, but you need to be good at programming.
Hello, ma'am. Excuse me.
Hi.
Hi, ma'am. I mean, can you just explain what is the difference between data science and artificial intelligence? I mean, are they both same or do we have any similarities? Are they correlating? And
Actually, this is the difference. If you ask me, it's like Metaverse. Have you heard of Metaverse?
yes, I
It's
heard
just, yeah,
virtual
so
reality.
Metaverse is just, that's what, it's just virtual reality repackaged as Metaverse, basically. Certain company trying to save its branding. So actually, this is the difference. Like if you ask me, a lot of times when people say AI, it's just about selling it, and that it sounds cooler. The lines are really blurry. Uh, I think this graph should explain it. So machine learning is a subset of AI. There are other approaches to, there could be other approaches to AI. Right now, we think that the approach through machine learning has been very successful. That's why we are on it. But there are also some hard problems which machine learning has not been able to solve. So maybe there would be a different approach in future. Data science is basically machine learning plus programming plus business expertise. It's basically how you apply machine learning in businesses on data in a meaningful way and generate insights. That is what data science is about. I hope like that answers your question. It's an intersection of 2-3 things.
Yeah, thank you.
So projects and internships, yeah, we're going to come to that. I'm now going to go to the next part. A lot of you have answered my form. What do you want in your job? But I mean, don't say salary. Everyone wants salary. Let's all agree on that. We all want like high packages, but apart from that, what do you want? And I found some interesting responses. Let me just pull that form. Give me 1 second. If you have views on this, feel free to type into the chat now too. Like, what do you want in your job? Great. Satisfaction, stress-free, learn and earn, prestige. Yeah, there is no right answer to this question. So the reason why I asked is because I just want to talk briefly now about my career journey, which I've not like explained till now. The reason why I asked this question is because I kind of wanted to drive home the point that do not make your long-term career plan based on the current salary which a particular industry or company or role is offering. Think long-term and look beyond that. So I was not very different from you all, by the way, like, and it wasn't that long ago. Maybe now it feels long. Like, yeah, I mean, 10 years is a long time. But I was in the exact same shoes. Um, I joined biotech thinking it was going to like take over the world. That time there was a lot of hype around like, okay, biotech is going to be like the next computer science, and there are going to be like millions of jobs in biotech. We all know that that did not happen. Um, so yeah, and I did a couple of internships in biotech, and it's a very personal decision. Like that time, whether I should do like a core job or should I did not actually, you know what, to be completely honest, I don't want to sell myself in this one. I want to be as candid as possible. I actually I was expecting that I will not get any job when I was in my third year. So trust me, like I know what you're going through, and my GPA was not that great either. Like, okay, I barely managed like 7. But the good part was it was increasing. Like my first year GPA was really low, but it kind of increased after that. So I mean, I had GPA about like 8 from my third and final year, so that worked a little bit in my favor for recruitment. So I barely qualified for some recruitment. And I also failed one course in my first year. So it's not like, I mean, the reason why I'm saying all these things is because you know what, life goes on. Right now, it feels like a really big deal, but it's not. And I also did not have a clue on what I should do. I thought, okay, the only thing is I can apply for every job which comes at campus. If that doesn't work out, my plan B was I'll sit out at home for 1 year after college and prepare for CAT. That was the plan B. If I don't crack it in the final year, I don't think this is a great plan, but yeah, this is exactly where I was. And I was also like facing similar rejections, like rejections in the sense I didn't qualify for a few core jobs anyway, and I didn't qualify for one of the first jobs which was open for non-circuit branches. A lot of you have asked me this question about like how to get into this field from a non-circuit branch, and I feel you there. I'm with you. I'm from biotech, so I feel you there. And I didn't have a clue. But one thing which did happen was that Mu Sigma appeared for campus recruitment that year. I saw their presentation on data science. It was really like on data analytics, it was called at that time, and it was really crisp, like 10 minutes. And I felt, okay, wow, this field is going to have a lot of potential. And I had to choose between like some other, what do you call it, like the one of the comp science jobs which do mass hiring, like I think it was Accenture. I had to choose between like Accenture and Mu Sigma, and I was like, you know what, I mean, this field looks new and I think it has a lot of potential, so let me get into this one. Even though the package was slightly lower, it wasn't all by choice, but yeah, that's how it happened. And I got into this field and I fell in love with it, and yeah, here I am. So what I'm saying is I also did go through all of those, like, oh, I didn't get into that company. Like I wish I got into that company which was paying more. But now I look back and I feel like, yeah, I mean, it all worked out fine. And I know the same thing about a lot of other people who had these regrets, but realize that, I mean, it all worked out fine. Like it worked out for the best. Now I think about it, I'm like, I'm glad. I wanted to do investment banking at that time because it was a high paying field. But now I feel like I'm glad that I didn't do it because I would not have enjoyed it at all. And so things work out. That's the point I'm trying to make. Normally, I do not do my introduction like this, but I wanted to be like super candid with all of you. After saying all this, I don't want the takeaway from this to be, go on. Someone said something.
If you have any
Okay.
doubts, put
I
it
think it
down
was
in the
someone
chat
by
box.
mistake.
Okay,
Yeah,
no problem.
we'll address
So
your queries.
no worries. I don't want the takeaway from all of this to be that I need to ignore my academics and have a low GPA. That is not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is that things work out fine. So right now, whatever small things look like very big things don't matter as much in the long run. But the point of it is not that you should ignore your GPA. You should. I mean, if you can do something about it now, I think you should. And if you ask me what motivated me is also like, why did my GPA increase after my first year, after my second year, second sem? That's also a funny story. You know what? I had a heartbreak. And I was like, I wasted so much time on this guy. I might as well have, I mean, I'm wasting so much time on this guy and I'm having a heartbreak. Like after a few months of heartbreak, I realized that, you know what, it's not worth it to spend so much time on this guy. I might as well like focus on myself and my academics and my career. And that's how my GPA improved from my third year onwards. The other point of the story is that heartbreaks, which are very common in your age, they look like a big deal at that moment. They're not that big a deal in the long run. So don't waste your time on them. So why I asked you like what matters for you in your job apart from money is kind of to nudge you all to take a structured approach in terms of planning your career. Think about the long term. So there is this thing called your work view. When you have time, like think about these questions like why do you work? What does it mean? Like what is it for? What defines good or worthwhile work? What does money have to do with it? How does it relate to others? And this keeps changing. This is not constant. It changes a lot as per your circumstances, but reflect on your work view to basically like plan where do you want to be, rather than just basing it only on salary. And salary is very important, but money has other implications. You know, when you think, yeah, I want a job for money, if you think deeper, you realize that it's not just about the money. Like there are multiple other things. Like what does getting a job mean to you? Like at this point, is it about, it could be about validation to your family. It could be about like financial independence. It's the first time when you're going to be earning money. So it's not just about having money. Like money carries other implications. So think deep about those things when you're making this decision. I know I'm sounding very yarny at this point, but I feel that this is very important to consider at this stage, at an early stage, to know about these things. The good part is that you're all really young, so you can afford to make a lot of mistakes. So don't be afraid to like try a lot of new things. That is one thing for sure, because if you make a mistake, you have a long time to like course correct, and it all course corrects. Also, I'm not the exception, by the way. Like I have a lot of friends on my LinkedIn who are friends, as in I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn who are from my batch. They're not from core branches and they are in highly technical roles in highly technical companies now. When you plan your career, like consider what are your key criteria. And another mistake we do is we consider very narrow options. Like you think about only companies which are coming for structured recruitment. And these are my options. Like I have core jobs, I have technical jobs, and I have the consulting companies of the world, or finance/consulting jobs. Or otherwise you prepare for masters, or you prepare for CAT. Like these are very narrow set of options. Like try and expand your options and consider alternatives. Like also look at all off-campus recruitment. I mean, before you consider like multiple options, think about what you want. When you think about what you want, it's easier to understand like what options you have depending on that interest. Another thing which is very important in today's world is you have to talk to people. Talk to people who are working in this field, especially if it is not for recruitment, even if it is for, say, like you are interested in doing a specialization, like you're interested in doing masters. Talk to people who are doing that to understand their experience, like to see if that's really what you want to do. Because a lot of times we have some idealistic image of what we want to do without information at this age, and we think that that's it. What I'm saying is, I mean, try and gather some information, but take it with a pinch of salt. Like people try to sell themselves more, but at least get some information, like research about the company's work culture if you're targeting certain companies. Um, yeah, so that's the generic gyan about it. That I mean, come up with a plan A and plan B. Like, what is your worst case? What is your ideal case? Why I'm saying this is don't try to do everything. Like, quality over quantity is better. So at least you will have some focus. It always like works out a little bit better. I mean, this is like my thing, which is highly opinionated. Like these are the three things which I recommend you to look at if you're looking for a job. Learning opportunities. Because in the first 2 years of your career, you have a lot of time, first of all, and you're willing to be very motivated. So look for learning opportunities. Of course, look for growth prospects and work culture fit. This is very important. This differs for every person, like what your ideal work culture is. I mean, it's really like frustrating to work with a bad manager. So think about the work culture fit. And yeah, talk to a few seniors, like I said, especially talk to the recent grads. They don't have to be from your college. They could go back to your high school. Like, I mean, think really broad about your network. They could be your neighbors, extended family, and look at long term. So yeah, like I said, a few things which I think you should do for sure. Learn some programming, even if you're not interested in tech stuff. Other thing is, if you're considering doing MBA right after college, I would say don't do it. At least not as planning, because you won't get much you won't get much value from that MBA. That shouldn't be your plan A. You can prepare for CAT and like get some practice, that's fine, but don't keep like MBA as your primary goal, is my recommendation. Remember that I'm also a person, so I have my biases. And definitely talk to people and stay connected and be informed. This is just something like I've put together if you're looking at like different things about, I mean, how you should go about exploring options for core, for technical jobs, for corporate jobs. Sorry. So the other option is about like getting into startups and entrepreneurship. So if you're interested in this area, which is my area of passion, it definitely helps to talk to people who are working in startups, and also with early entrepreneurs, or even with like experienced entrepreneurs, to understand about their journey. Do research material about this, do look at those videos, podcasts, follow these things, and also importantly, like participate in things like hackathons and startup competitions. Even if you're not interested in startups, it's anyway like a very powerful experience for you to gain. At this point, I just want to say, I think Innovation Garage is putting up something around a hackathon. It's called the Firefly. So it's a innovative skill development accelerator program. If any of you is interested, like do register for it. Harsha or Laksha, do you want to like type into the chat the link for this one?
Yes, ma'am. We'll put our social media handles in the chat box. You can continue.
Yeah, that's perfect. So if you're in your first and second year, you have a lot of time. So now is when you can actually like explore a lot of things. My advice would be to do some extracurriculars, like take part in some competitions and activities. This is all going to be useful whether you're doing recruitment or higher studies. Trust me, like master's applications, any master's applications, whether it's MBA or MS, like they will look for things like this. Pursue some passion projects or hobbies. This is where I think people get very confused. It doesn't have to be something which looks cool. This is about being authentic, like do that thing which is, spend time doing things which you like in a meaningful way to show some outcome. I hope like you're getting what I'm saying when I say like pursue some hobbies or passion projects. It's about like spending time. It doesn't have to be doing things which you don't like. It could be about doing things which you really like and get some meaningful outcome from it. And this differs very much from person to person. Like, be authentic and think about like what you really like and what you want to do, and do those things. And it's great to like talk to people and understand about their career journeys. If you are in your first year, you'll have time for this. Um, if you're in your third year, this is when you need to like start narrowing options and coming up with a plan A and plan B, because you should gather information quickly. I would still say you continue with your hobbies, whatever. I mean, you have to prioritize. Don't do like 20 things. Do like 3 things, but get some meaningful output from that. When I was in college, we started the entrepreneurship club. I was one of the first additional secretaries for that club. And that was the main activity which I was involved in. And it was fun. So do things like that. I mean, and activity could be defined in very broad sense. Like if you're interested in academics, it could be a research project, like whatever it is. Basically do something which you like, which is not just your academics, and in a meaningful way. And when you come to final year, this is where you need to really focus on your plan A, and you also need to decide like whether you need to start working on your plan B or not, depending upon like how situation evolves. And you also need to stay open for options, like depending upon how things are working out. And this is the underlying point, which you all hate to hear. Don't neglect academics completely. GPA is not everything, but it's a lot. It's a lot, and it makes life easy. So try and have a decent GPA if you can. Sorry. I know that when we are in college or in general in life, our Venn diagram looks like this. There is no intersection between what you like, what you're good at, and what is useful or what makes money. Try and avoid this. Like, at least do things which you are, at least do things which you like and which you are good at in a meaningful way. A lot of people get confused about like what do these like MS applications mean, like when they ask for like hobby projects, or what do like companies mean, like why do companies look at this? It's just to like understand who you are as a person and to see that you are motivated to do something for a long period of time. At this point, I want to ask like a quick question, like type into the chat. Is GPA cutoff for recruitment fair or not? Yes, no? Okay, I see a pattern here. A lot of you have said yes. That's interesting. 6.5 or less is fair. Okay. Okay. Yes, so I completely agree with you that no number should hold like that much importance. But as a recruiter, like why do they ask for this then? Does anyone want to like say why they ask for it? No opinions? It's basically because that's, yeah, to see exactly, to see if they can, yeah, it's not just about filtering. Yes, it is about filtering. And it's kind of the only data point, right, to judge. Exactly. They want to know if you're really sincere, like you have put in a lot of effort. I mean, assuming you put in a lot of effort to come into this college, and for example, like you did not like whatever is going on and you choose to ignore it, they would be like, okay, like what if like you do the same thing in the job, like you get the job and then what if you ignore it? So the reason why, like one of the reasons why they ask for they look at it is because they don't have a lot of information otherwise on you to judge you, and they don't have an infinite amount of time. It's a shortcut. Shortcuts are useful, but they're not like 100% accurate. So yeah, that happens. I agree that it's not fair. I'm just like hammering on the point that don't ignore it completely. But if you are like already in your final, can't course correct it, then completely ignore what I'm saying now. Because see, it's like this, right? Like if you can do something about it, do it. Otherwise, don't let that like. I mean, I know people who have. Had year repeats, and I don't want to name who they are, but They are partners in a very big like analytics consulting company now, and the company has raised a lot of funds. They're doing quite well. So, I mean, life goes on. But if you can make it easy, try and make it easy. Some of you have asked, like, how do you manage it? It takes a lot of time. You have a lot of time. So, I think this is the only age when you have a lot of time. So, I'm not saying you should aim for like being the topper in the class. There's nothing wrong with aiming for that. Then you have to like pursue it in a different way, but at least try and like keep ahead of the cutoffs. I hope like you got the message. Try and keep it like above the cutoff so that you qualify for a lot of them. At this point, like I want to pause and give like a 30-second breather because this was all about like career. If you have any questions, you can type into the chat or take like a screen break, like look at your phone.
Ma'am, you said that we require a business knowledge and data scientist. So, ma'am, can you explain that, ma'am? Because there is data analyst and data scientist, ma'am. These two things are, I guess, different, ma'am.
They are, see, like I said, don't get caught up on the terminology. Companies sell what they want to sell. A lot of times the terms are used to either sell to investors that they are doing cool stuff or to sell to candidates that they are looking for cool roles. So it's really not a very hard and fast difference, if you ask me. But I mean, if you're negotiating, yeah, try and get a data scientist role. Like if you're on the other side and when you're switching jobs or like if you're trying to negotiate, like, yeah, it's better to have the data scientist title because that's valued more in the market. But it's really not, it's really not a very hard and fast like line, like I said. Actually, what ends up happening, I think ideally, like if you want to be good at this field, is that you do everything by yourself, like right from data preparation to the final presentation where you are like presenting your project. Be prepared to like do it end to end. That would be best because then you can gain a variety of skills along the way. Yeah, that's my belief. And in the team like which I've managed, we didn't have things like ML engineer and business intelligence expert and things like that. We wanted it to be that way where people own the project. And as a head of data science, that is the model I advocate other companies to follow, but generally companies don't follow it. Someone asked me, like, can you really master this in 1 year? I have two answers to this. One thing is, in general, like if you want to learn something, it never stops. You keep on like discovering new things about it over time. It's more about, I mean, that is true for anything in general. Like if you're learning music or if you're learning data science or if you're learning programming, like, I mean, you're going to discover new things. Learning never really stops. And, degree of mastery is also going to improve. The other part of this question, which I think you want to ask is, can you get to a reasonably decent stage? That depends a lot on the kind of exposure you had, which is why you should prioritize a company which gives you that kind of learning opportunities. Even if, yeah, I mean, I think you should prioritize that. Um, should you pursue masters to land a job in this field? See, it's like plan A, plan B, right? Like I would advise that if you can directly go and work in the field, go and work in the field. Um, if that doesn't happen, then the plan B is masters. but it's not like an absolutely necessary criteria. Masters is a very different kind of a decision, like which you have to evaluate. There are other things which come into play, like where you do masters, India, outside of India, why you're doing it. First project after getting basic knowledge, what should it be? So you can start with the material which is available online, like the mock courses. But what would be really like useful, like what would be a wow factor, is if you can collect some real life data and do something with it. Like, I mean, for your own fun, like maybe you scrape some reviews from some websites and try and do something with it, or you collect some data within your college. Like it could be a small analysis, it could be like a model, but that would be a wow factor. I'm going to move on now in the interest of time. So now we're going to talk in detail about recruitment. If you look at this, these are the top 5 soft skills which employers want in 2020. And just take a second to look at the list. They are highly, highly people skills. So what I'm trying to say is these skills are important to get recruited and also for your long-term career success. It's all about the soft skills. A lot of it is about the soft skills, like how you work in a team, how you can collaborate with people, how you communicate with people. Do you have EQ? A lot of it is about that. How you can negotiate, how you can persuade, how you can influence. So they matter more in the long-term career success than hard skills. I saw a lot of you like answer this question. I asked you like what is more important, motivation or capabilities? Most of you said it is capabilities. I have been on the other side of recruitment. I think in general, how recruiters approach this is that motivation is more important than capabilities. Because even if you're capable, I ultimately want someone who can, I ultimately want someone, even if you have a lot of skills, if you're not going to be happy doing this job, you are probably not the right investment for my team. That is how recruiters think. And this has been like more and more and more trending now because the attrition rates have increased a lot with pandemic. So the whole point of a lot of things which they do in recruitment is just to see if they really like, if you are really interested in that job. That's why they ask what they ask. Having said that, recruiters are also people. Don't think of this interview as this highly subjective process, which is like pass or fail. It's not. I mean, recruiters make a lot of mistakes. I've been on the other side. I'm telling you, it depends on things like how my mood was that day. Did I wake up late? How was my car ride from airport to the college? So we all make these mistakes. So my point is like, if you don't get something, don't make that a statement of your capabilities. So recruitment do's and don'ts. Definitely prepare. If you're interested in recruitment, prepare. Use all the resources which you have. Like look at Glassdoor, talk to seniors, look at LinkedIn, internet. Do everything to understand about a particular company, what their selection process is. These days they post those things on Glassdoor or some other place. These days you have all of this information available. See what their process is, what they're looking for. Find out what they do, like look at their webpage, look them up in the news, see what try and understand what they're hiring for, and collect material to look at like previous question papers and like do these practice tests. Most of you have thankfully said that aptitude tests are not like something which are difficult for you. Like they're the easiest ones to crack, so that's good to know. But if it is something which is concerning to you, then definitely like practice, collect all the past papers and like practice. A lot of times companies ask the exact same questions next year. So it's really about whether you have done that little bit of extra work or not. And approach this in a prioritized manner. Do attend the company's presentations. For the mid-sized companies, right? Like for the non-corporates, they really look for this, because what they know is that your ideal is some other company. So they really want to know whether your ideal is this company now or not, and whether you will enjoy working for this company now or not, because they are not a big brand like the other big brands. Like, for example, if they're not a PwC, if they're not a PwC, and I'm coming after PwC, I know that probably you would have wanted to work with PwC more. So you really need to demonstrate that you're motivated. So attend the presentation, like listen to what they're saying. Like, if you are more interested in this company, explore options out of campus. I'll talk a little more about it later. Some basics like don't cheat, don't do things which are creepy and damage the school's reputation. Like, people are people, right? Like, we judge everything all the time, and a lot of times what happens is that, okay, I went to that college, I didn't have a bad experience, I didn't have a good experience with so and so person, maybe we should not go back there again. This is actually how it happens a lot of times. So yeah, those are the basics. For data science, when companies come in for this recruitment, nobody expects you to be an expert, because we know that you don't have like real world or real data experience. Generally, that is not the expectation. But what is the expectation is that you have learned some programming, because that's something which you can learn even without real world data. So that is the expectation, that you can code well and you have done things in programming, especially like Python, like whichever is more relevant to data science. It's good if you do some mock projects or courses to show that you're motivated, but it doesn't show your expertise. You cannot become an expert by just doing those courses. Real world data is shit, like I said, but it's like a good to have. Like, it shows even more that you're motivated. And you can expect questions around like data thinking. This is something which people ask, like, for if you have approached, I mean, what kind of data would you collect to do XYZ problem? If you talk about a project which you have done, they may ask you these questions, like, how would you use data to like make this better? Like, what is the kind of data which you would look at, how you would apply it, what metrics you would look at? These are the kind of questions which they would ask. And sometimes they also ask like generic things about aptitude, like guesstimates, puzzles, and cases. And if you mention a data science project, like if you talk about it in your intro or in your resume, then be prepared to talk in detail about it. Don't just name drop. And when you do that project, like, try and understand it in detail. Like, don't just do it for the sake of doing it. This is where like people really want to know that you're not bullshitting. So explain like what you have done, and also know that you're not an expert in this field. If they differ with you on something, like, listen to them. Show that you're prepared to learn. Don't position yourself as an expert, because you are not at this point. I hope like I'm making it clear. What you need to show is that you are really motivated and you are really willing to learn. That is what you need to show. And when you talk about your project, like, be prepared to explain these things, like which data you use, like what tools, what approach did you take, why did you choose that approach, what were the conclusions, and also like what did you learn, like what did you enjoy doing it, like what did you enjoy most about it. Like, be a bit candid and bring some human element into it. That ends my like entire suggestions for data science. Web 3.0. Yeah, a lot of people are watching it closely. Webhub. I don't think it will. I don't think it will change. I mean, I don't think AI is going anywhere. Like, even within Web 3.0, like, we'll find ways to fit it in. So maybe like how people have used GPUs in combination with ML before to come up with deep learning. Maybe there'll be like new approaches which will emerge with Web 3.0, like new applications which will emerge. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't change like anything fundamentally about either the algorithms or either the data approach. I'm going to talk a little bit in general about interviews now. Who do you like more between these two people? Just type into the chat like
When the
left or right.
recruiter asks us a question which we are unable to answer, then how to respond?
I'm coming to that. Thanks for the question. You mean if it is specifically in data science, you can say, I don't know. I mean, don't bullshit around it. Say, I'm not entirely sure about this question. It's fine. Yeah. So the point being, you have decided this within like 2 seconds about whom you like more. And that is how it happens in real life. There is data which shows that we form an 80% opinion of someone within 7 seconds. It's it's 7 seconds. So fundamentals, when you walk into an interview, smile. This is very hard to do. I understand all the nervousness, but seriously, the interviewer is also a human and they're interviewing a lot of people, so smile. Thank them for shortlisting you. Dress well. I mean, if you're not even bothered to dress well, how do I know that you're motivated for the job? Right? And show some empathy, like if you can, like how are they doing? Don't do it randomly, but yeah, I mean, depending on the context, like show some empathy, show some energy and excitement. This is most important. The fundamental objective of an interview is that you sell yourself. So the question you need to ask yourself is, do you believe that you are capable of doing this job? If you do, then you should walk in with confidence. And if you prepare and rehearse, it will really help. One tip is, before the interview, go to a room, scream for a minute. It lets the voice come out so that when you go to the interview, you can talk. A lot of times it happens to us, like when we're nervous, our voice becomes like very low, we can't speak clearly. So, I mean, it's just something which you can try out. Do some mock with your friends or with someone like seniors, even if it's not accurate, right? Like it just gets it out of your system. Even basic things like tell me about yourself, these things get it out of your system. And remember that it's not a life-changing thing. You move on if things don't go well. And also believe in yourself that you're going to do this job well. These interviewers are also like on your side for other jobs which they're applying to. So, and importantly, be authentic. Like a lot of times people try to fit in what looks cool in an interview. It's not really about that. Show them who you are as a person. Like if you believe you're a good person, then you need to show them that. I mean, you need to find a way to bring that in naturally. Don't be robotic, like prepare, but don't be robotic. It shouldn't look like you are vomiting things which you have learned on their face. Like, you know, bring in that tone, body language and emotion into the interview. Use, and especially if you're having Zoom interviews, then it's going to be even more difficult to do it. You need to make sure that I mean, people turn off in Zoom like even more quickly than you think. So you need to make sure that the interviewer is engaged. And always be alert, because the interview is about judging you. So you may be put on the spot anytime. Don't be afraid, but be alert. Like be alert. Don't just like chill off in between. Always stay alert. Yeah, and very fundamentally, don't argue with the interviewer. And don't beg. It's not. Don't beg, like you don't have to. That's not what you need to show. You just need to show that you're going to be a valuable resource for the company. And another thing why people dread interviews, I know this and this is a sensitive topic. Unfortunately, both interviewers and students mix up communication skills with English skills. That's because English is the professional corporate language today. So what the point I'm trying to make is, if you first identify like what is your challenge, like if it is English language skills, work on it. If it is communication skills, work on it. These are two, like, not completely independent, but they're different things. Be clear about it. And if it is English, there are some like quick hacks to do this. Watch some videos and English movies. Like especially through entertainment, you can learn it like really fast. You don't have to demonstrate a lot of vocabulary. You just need to like say things clearly and in short sentences. Communication, like be structured, like be clear. Most importantly, like listen to a lot of times, you know what I judge candidates on, like did they answer the question which I asked or not. If they didn't answer the question which I asked, I'm like, okay, this guy is not listening to like what I'm saying. So that's very important. Show some empathy. EQ is really important, and I can't teach it. Like you need to understand like where the other person is, like sense the tone. I think I'm just going to quickly do like 2-3 FAQs which people ask in interviews. The most standard one, like tell me about yourself. Just type into the chat like what do you think you should do in this case. And does anyone want to like just unmute and say like what they think they should say over here, like how they should approach this?
Hello.
Good. Yeah.
So I think telling them about myself should be like firstly my name and like my education, what all I've studied, and then my skills, and pretty much that's it.
Okay. Good points. That makes sense. So the point of this question is actually them giving you an opportunity to anchor the rest of the conversation. This is where you get to like talk up about things which you can talk more in detail about and not draw attention to things which you don't want to draw attention to. So if there are some activities which you're more confident about, or if you have some unique interests, or even not even unique, like if you have some good interests which you want to talk about, basically show them like who you are, and also if possible, yes, like connect the dots and show like why you are interested in this job, and you know like what you can do for the company. But this question is an anchor, and you don't have to keep talking. Stop at a point which is a high point for you and say like would you like to know more. If you have something, especially like if you have something more interesting to say on that thing, that's where you pause it and let the conversation go on. This is called anchoring. You're kind of like leading the conversation here, and most interviewers like give you the opportunity to do this. And I would do it even with an experienced candidate. I would say, tell me about a project you worked on. So I'm giving the candidate the chance to like tell me the project which they are more comfortable with. But then if you are only like talking about it, then you better be prepared to like defend yourself and talk about it in detail. Other standard question, like what are your interests? There are no right interests. Basically, it's not about naming a list. Like it's not like one interest is better than the other. If your interests are related to what the company is asking for, that's fantastic. Even if not, the point of this question is not to name a list. For example, let's say you are interested in Scrabble. Talk about like how did you get involved with Scrabble? Like talk about like why you enjoy doing it, like what you learned from it, and talk about some events which have happened around it. Like, you know, I mean, maybe you participated in 2-3 like Scrabble competitions and it was fun. So talk about like what it means to you, and talk about like what you learned from it. That is how you need to answer these questions. I hope like you're getting the overall like narrative about interviews here. When people ask these questions, it's the same thing goes for like what are your strengths. It's not about one strength is better than the other. But when you say this is my strength, like follow it up with an example, like, you know, say that, you know what, this has happened and that is why, um, I mean, show some, I mean, explain about some incident which actually like brings out that strength. It's not about listing like 5 different strengths. Have like 2-3 strengths in mind. Now this you need to identify for yourself about who you are, like what are the things which you want to talk about. But this is how you need to go about these things. The same thing goes for like when they say, can you tell me more about this project, or can you tell me more about this internship, this activity? Like make it real. Talk about the team which you worked with, in the sense like you say you work with like 6 people, and talk about how the team dynamic was. Talk about like what were the challenges you faced, what did you learn from it, what did you like about it, what were the key decision points, like how did you approach this thing. And they will generally ask you cross questions saying, okay, why didn't you do it this way? That's very natural. That's a very natural follow-up into that, right? Like, did you consider doing it this way? At that point, like pause, think about it and say, yeah, maybe like genuinely, maybe we could have considered it. Or say like, I mean, I feel that for so and so reasons it doesn't fit in, but genuinely consider it. And this is the other thing which is generally asked, could you have done something better now? On reflecting back, if you have something like that's something which you can say that, you know what, I think it would have been even better if you did it this way. All these things show that you're willing to learn and you actually like know what you're talking about. Yeah. So when somebody asks you like, do you have any questions for me? What you should not ask, type into the chat. When someone says like, generally interviewers say, right, like, hmm.
Mama, you've been here a long time. What is it?
I'm so sorry, just give me a moment. Sorry, that is the uh, reality about working from home. So I have two 4-year-old twin daughters. You understand that I can't control kids at that age. So feedback you can ask, sense the tone. If they're not willing to give feedback, then don't push for it. Like if they, I mean, if you just, I mean, you can ask for it, but if they're not interested in sharing more, then don't press for more details. Yeah, what you should not ask is, do they have long work hours, for example? Don't ask it like that. You can ask about work culture in general. You can also ask about salary. If it is the HR and you have like specific questions around it, it's perfectly okay to like get factual information about salary. But don't ask things like, do you have long work hours? How many hours a day do I mean, ask in general about work culture, that's fine. And this is also a great opportunity to show your interest in the company. I mean, you can try to get more information in terms of like, okay, can you tell me about your favorite project which you worked on? If it is HR, you can ask about the work culture. If it is senior management, you can ask about like, okay, what is the next big move for the company? Or, I mean, you can get creative over here. You can actually like ask genuine questions. Definitely do not ask about work hours in a tone which implies that you don't want to work. If you want to find out about work hours, get it from Google or from the people who have worked in the company. Anyway, these people are not going to tell you the truth. I'm just going to push on. So that's, we talked a lot about interviews now. I'm going to skip this. Now, off-campus recruitments. This is something I want to like briefly talk about and end it on this note. For off-campus recruitment, you need to obviously like network a lot. You have to like look at what are the companies which are doing recruitment drives like actively from freshers, like, or which are posting their openings on all kinds of like forums like LinkedIn or Naukri or whatever. And also don't start off with the job first. These things happen a little bit more organically, where you first do coffee chats with your like seniors who are working over there, or with some friends who are working over there, like then find out from them like if there could be potential opportunities. Or if it is with someone new, then you are just trying to understand a little bit more about the industry, like be clear on what you're asking for. And you are asking somebody to give them their time, right? And time today is one of the most valuable things which people can spare. So you really need to be like very you really need to be like highly empathetic about how you're going about this when you're asking someone to do this for you. It's not just about job. Also ask, I mean, also try and find out more about the industry and the work like which different people are doing. That will automatically tell you like more about the kind of roles which are available. And then if you, I mean, if you find out that there could be potential openings, you can like try and get referred through the HR. So it's not like a it's not like a one-shot process where like today you ask and tomorrow you'll get to know whether there's an opening. It's more of a long-term thing, which is why I'm saying that all these things take time. So you need to be smart about prioritizing only what you really want to do. Like, don't waste your time like about jobs which you're not interested in. So prioritize over here and do these things. In my experience, like people have done this with me before, like in the sense, not with me directly, like either my HR or someone in my team would come and like say, you know what, there's a candidate who is interested. In general, if the company is coming to you for campus recruitment, unless you were excluded because of if the company is coming for campus recruitment, don't approach them for off campus in that same year, because as a company I would be like, okay, but why didn't you show up in my recruitment? So focus on other companies. For example, if somebody is going to Suratkal and they didn't come to Warangal, that's a company you should like approach, because there you try and find out your friends who are working over there and like try and find out openings and say that, you know what, there's a similar candidate from a similar college, like can you consider this person also and be considered for that application. So that's one thing you can do. Or the company has been coming in the previous years, but this year they didn't come due to some reason. Then you can try and get referred by somebody else. But generally not the exact same company which did the exact same process, because I would be like, okay, then what were you doing like when we were doing all this in your campus? So coffee chats is all about EQ. Only 1 in 10 people will reply to your request, by the way, for coffee chats. So don't be like dejected by it. It's again like you're asking for something big, right? Like you're asking for a stranger for their time. So be smart about how you're going about it. Mention like the questions that you have. Do not ask for a job from a stranger. You're just trying to get some information and their insights based on their experience. If it is HR, you can ask them if they have openings after like you introduce yourself properly, and do not use don't use WhatsApp lingo on LinkedIn. The point is you're asking someone completely random to spend time on you, and you have not even bothered to type in the word completely. How would I judge it? If you were me, like, how would you judge it? So that's that. This slide I'm going to share with you. You can have a look at it later. To sum it up, basically, remember that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. A lot of people have gone through it before. I guarantee all of you that you're all going to like get some job, and not just job, like I guarantee all of you that you're all going to like do really well in life. You're already studying in a really good college in India, and you have more options open than like most other people. I'm sure you'll all figure it out. So yeah, just stay confident and do the right things. That's my end note. I know that we're already past time, so one final thing I wanted to add is I'm looking for part-time interns in my startup. If that is something which you all are interested in, please feel free to like apply. This is the QR code you need to scan, and if you could take like 2 minutes to fill this feedback survey, I'd really appreciate it. If you're interested in the part-time internship, this is not related to AI and ML. This is for my startup. It's a paid internship. If you're interested, like scan the QR code and you can send me an email later. I'm just going to like give you 2 minutes to fill this survey. I would really appreciate it if you do. Now, if you have any questions, like feel free to like ask. And those who want to drop off, you can drop off. Harsha, do you have anything else to add?
That's it, ma'am. We have a few GFORM questions, so if you have time, we can take this up.
Sure. So if somebody has questions, like I'll hang back for some time. But others, I know that it's Sunday evening, so feel free to drop off if you want to. But do fill the Google form, like it'll really help.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yep.
Yes, if the interviewer asks us a tricky question, which is like, tell me about your weakness, then how
Yeah, we didn't touch upon it, right? Like the point of the weakness question is that you need to make it a story about your learning. Uh, okay, weakness, right? You can name a genuine weakness. Um, don't You can name a genuine weakness, uh, but don't make that a weakness about people skills. Maybe you are more introverted or whatever that weakness is. Like name a genuine weakness and explain about what you're doing to overcome it. That's how you answer that question. Yeah, it's a this is a tricky question. Like generally, and also if you get asked about failure, the point of the failure story is about learning. People love like failure stories, by the way. So if you have low GPA, I'm not saying you should get a low GPA and do a failure story, but if you have a low GPA, if you can do a failure turned success story, that would be fantastic. I mean, if you can demonstrate that you have learned over time and now you're doing so and so things to really show that, that works out as well.
Ma'am,
But
I hope I'm audible.
yep.
Ma'am, how do we switch between profiles, 1 or 2 years into the job? Like, for example, I'm a tester, for example. I'm a tester and I want to maybe enter into the field of data science. Maybe I want to come as a data engineer or a data scientist. How do I actually make the switch? Because like they definitely look for work experience and I mean, my work experience will be completely different to the domain that I'm aiming, right? Then how can I make the switch? How is it?
Um, so this is something which is very common, by the way. Like a lot of people, you can look at your seniors profiles who have done this transition. I know a lot of people who have transitioned from something else into this field. They don't have to be like seniors with 10 years of work experience. In fact, more recent seniors would be better. So for transitioning, there is something called transferable skills. Like if you can show, for example, if you're a tester, you're already good at programming, is my assumption to start with. And you can show that you bring in some kind of relevant experience in terms of both soft skills. I mean, if you're a tester and say you're a team lead, or say you have done something in terms of stakeholder management. So, if you can bring in some transferable skills and then make it relatable and then explain your motivation to change, it helps. But if you're somebody with experience, you need to like talk more about what you can bring to the company than what the company means to you. But this is called transferable skills. So look it up. I mean, people try to do it all the time.
Okay, but
And
I
a
mean,
lot of them manage it also.
okay, so doing projects, etc., that doesn't help. I mean, once we have some work experience or something.
That also helps. That also helps. That also definitely helps. One thing which I would definitely say is that if you're doing a particular job, like do it well, no matter what, even if you're planning to switch, because that would be that makes your overall like career arc really strong. It would help, of course, like doing projects outside to show your motivation and learning like machine learning skills outside will always help. But I'm saying you don't want to ignore the 2 years of your work experience. What I'm trying to say is how can you bring in that little, how can you use that little extra which you already have to your advantage? Then the transferable skills things becomes important, that you can't be treated like a complete fresher because you already have some work experience. Like you know how to work in a corporate, you know how to work in a team, you know how to like communicate with stakeholders, and you also know programming. So then you bring in these kind of things to say that okay, like I also have these extra things. That is more for you to like position yourself stronger than a fresher.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Oh, sorry, it's Saturday actually. Thanks, Rahul.
Yeah, ma'am, am I audible?
Yep.
Ma'am, being a fresher, what is that recruiters basically expect from us? Like, suppose if I'm applying for some data science role, do they only expect me to have some machine learning knowledge, or even some terms of deep learning as well?
What is the second one? Some kind of
Deep learning.
what
Deep
they
learning.
expect you to have is that actually you are and you are interested to do the job. Generally, that is what they expect. They don't expect you to come in with the expertise. but all the different ways in which you actually demonstrate that you are motivated is by showing that you have learned these skills, you have learned these tools. Like, I already know Python, I already know Excel. I mean, anyway, they will teach you those things again, but it helps, like, if you take initiative and show that I already did these things, I already took part in these kind of, maybe there are some data related hackathons, I looked up like these projects. If you say these kind of things, it shows your motivation. Normally they don't expect you to, like, if I were the interviewer, I don't expect you to come and like explain about deep learning to me. That answers your question. Okay, I'll type the link into the.
Yes, ma'am. Go on.
So someone asked they couldn't like access the QR, so I'm just typing in. This is if you are interested in a part-time internship in a startup, which is not about AI/ML. Go on, somebody had a question.
Yeah, it was me, ma'am. Does anyone have any other questions?
How good we should be at Python? Really good. Yes, I guess we should, unless like somebody has any questions, you can always like get in touch.
Yeah.
Get in touch on LinkedIn if you want to like know more. So the
Ma'am, what is the ma'am? Am I audible?
yeah,
you are.
Ma'am, what is the perfect roadmap to go through research and development of artificial intelligence?
Sorry, come again.
Ma'am, what is the perfect roadmap to get to research and development in artificial intelligence?
If you want to get into research and development, see, there's no such thing as perfect, but my advice is that you do like masters and yeah, do masters.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, there are two questions from Google form.
Mm-hmm.
One is, how were you able to get into data science roles despite being from biotechnology branch, and how did you face the questions in interview, like despite being from biotechnology, why would you want to work as a data scientist, etc.?
Yeah. So like I said, the aptitude, there was an aptitude test and group discussion and interview like with most companies even at that time. So that's how I got into this field. And the aptitude test was, usually you can expect something which is quant like or a little bit around stats and probability, but not like too much. You can expect it to be a little bit quant like plus cat like how most aptitude tests are. And the interview was actually not about like anything about data analytics, like contrary to what you expect. Usually in the interview they give you an opportunity to anchor. So I talked about something which I did at like entrepreneurship club, and that's how it happened. And there was of course a group discussion in between. So and I think even ZS associates, if I'm not wrong, like I don't remember how they do it, like they usually ask for guesstimates or something along those lines for data analytics roles.
All right. Ma'am, there's one last question. So what is the future of startups in data science in India?
So when we say startups in data science, like there are two things. One is the consulting companies who are offering it as a service. The other is startups which are powered by data. For example, the consulting companies which are doing this as a service, like the math company, Sigma, Fractals of the world, there is going to be more fragmentation in it. Every other day, like a new consulting company generally comes up, so there are going to be more and more of them. But the data powered companies, it's going to be more and more disruptive. Like if you think about something like a Flipkart, or if you think about something like any e-commerce platform or anything which you can call as a platform, there are like so many applications of it, and they have like they have very focused data science teams like doing a lot of things around it. any product which you can think of, like for example, ShareChat, Savan. So there are like a lot of companies which have very focused like data science applications and roles. So I don't think that's going anywhere.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Else we can wrap up. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very nice session having you here. We had a lot of fun and it was a wonderful journey.
Thank you so much for putting this together, and thank you all for like sticking till the end. It was there were a lot of good questions. Amazing interacting with all of you. Do register for the hackathon if you're interested, and do reach out if you want to do the part-time internship. And I am once again like, I apologize for the interruption in between. You've been like a lovely audience. All right then.
And where to
All the
register
best.
for the hackathon?
Harsha, have you put it on the chat?
Yeah, ma'am. We'll send it on the community groups on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
You'll get
Okay
it
then.
soon.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
All the best, everyone. Bye.